Hey, thanks for joining us for a CX Moment today. This weekly series is where we chat with companies about what's happening with their business, their support centers, and with their customer experience. If you want to catch up on any of our previous episodes, check out our Zendesk YouTube channel and you'll find our conversations with Birchbox, Slack, Freshly, Box, and several others. I'm Sarah Reed from Zendesk, and today we're going to be joined by two CFOs, Rachel Glaser, who is the CFO of Etsy, who happens to be running just a little bit late today, and Zendesk's own CFO, Elena Gomez. And if you're not in finance, don't worry, this conversation is still meant for you, probably more so for you than anyone who is in finance. This 30 minutes goes really fast, so ask your questions in the Q&A, and we're going to do our best to answer them all. And you'll see a poll about 5 minutes before the end of this broadcast. So if you could, take a moment and fill that out. So let's just go ahead and get started. All right, we were meant to have two CFOs here together today. One of them happens to be running late. Elena, is this a common thing?
It's 100% common. I'm glad I'm here on time.
So we will bring in Rachel as soon as she gets here. But having CFOs together, we have not talked to a CFO on this broadcast yet. So what should we even talk about? Do you want to talk about contact center operations, sales and marketing, maybe some HR stuff?
No, you know, the funny thing is that when people hear CFO, they always think, oh, they want to talk about budgets and finance. But candidly, the thing that's top of mind for me is our customers. And that's, you know, any CFO you talk to would probably tell you the same thing. There's kind of this misconception that it's all about dollars and cents, but really right now, I don't know any CFO who isn't paying attention to their customers and showing the right proper empathy going through what is completely unprecedented.
And unprecedented it is. And so you mentioned you care most about customers. And I'm going to ask a super simple question,
Yeah,
but
sure.
why? Why do you care so much about what's happening with our customer base?
Well, I mean, there's a whole host of reasons. I think for us, I think, you know, Zendesk is obviously the mission that we have is always to help customers build better relationships. And so in this time, we can't be tone deaf to the fact that they're obviously going through some challenges, as every company is, trying to understand when are we going to all go back to work, and when will I have to stop wearing a mask, and all these things that obviously will impact all of our businesses around the globe. And so the purpose for us of focusing on customers is because we learn a lot from them, but that's why Zendesk was built to help our customers. And so through this time, that is our number one priority, followed very close second. I don't want my employees to get mad at me, to pay attention to our employees as well, because obviously without them, we couldn't serve the customers as well as we do.
Hi,
Welcome,
Rachel.
Hello there. I'm very sorry about that. I've been trying for 10 minutes to get into the webcast, and I must have had the wrong link, but somebody behind the scenes figured it out.
Well, we're so happy to see you today. So welcome. Well, one of the things, Rachel, we were just talking about, and we were joking a little that, you know, it's not usual that we're chatting with two CFOs in this broadcast. And so we're really excited about it. What is top of mind for you right now at Etsy?
So first and foremost for us is really the safety and stability of our entire Etsy ecosystem. So by that, I mean not only the Etsy employees, but all of the sellers in our community. They're not our employees, but there's 2.8 million sellers that are independent entrepreneurs that really are the life's blood of what Etsy does. And you can imagine that some of them might also be very much suffering during this period of time. We've had a little journey since this crisis began, where at first we saw a nice steep deceleration in our sales. And shortly after that, we saw a huge surge in demand for one product. And that was a product that couldn't be found anywhere else, where the CDC said everybody needs to be wearing face masks. And I bring that up this early in the conversation because it's sort of the poetry of Etsy's marketplace, that we have millions of independent creative entrepreneurs that could meet that demand and millions of customers that needed that product and couldn't get it elsewhere. And it was sort of like our Dunkirk. We had this cottage industry of people that could rise up to this occasion. And it isn't so much the face mask itself, but it's the agility with which the Etsy team sellers were able to, pivot on a dime and be able to provide that. So I really care. We really care about our sellers. We've done a lot of things to support them in this moment. And we really care about our employees, who obviously many of them are also suffering through this. And so that's my top foremost concern.
Well, I can say very personally, thank you, and to all of your sellers. I believe my husband and I, and probably every person we know, has purchased at least one mask off of Etsy, because everybody else was sold out, or the lead times were so dramatic that it just, by the time we were told we all had to wear them, they were already gone. So,
well, and thank you for your business. And I think if we have to be wearing them for a while, we're going to want to, fashion them up, match our dresses or our
absolutely,
our alma maters or whatever they are. So keep on buying.
Well, you both brought up something which I think is really interesting, in that the customer dynamic, but is it true to say that both Zendesk and Etsy also really cater to the small business, and that we have a lot of small businesses in our ecosystem, and are you seeing them struggling a little bit more with what's happening right now, or is there also a bit of a surge that's occurring?
We're seeing both. That's a good question, Sarah. We're actually seeing both. We're seeing, obviously, customers in certain industries that are distressed, travel, rideshare, et cetera. And then the flip side is we're seeing customers, as an example, an insurance company who wants to connect seniors with volunteers who want to deliver groceries, and they need a tool to help them sort that out. We're seeing, food delivery tickets volume up. And so we're seeing a little bit of both. It's a puts and takes, which is what makes it hard for a CFO, because you're always trying to have clarity and vision and be very precise about what's coming. And of course, this is just an unusual time.
Right.
Yeah, I think, Etsy's in one of the, I don't know how many people are familiar with Etsy, but it has this very long tail of product in many, many categories. And so when we just did our last earnings call, we said that Etsy plus our one of our new marketplaces, Reverb, which is kind of the Etsy of musical instruments, together were up 130% in sales in April. And then Etsy, without the masks, Etsy on a standalone basis was up 79% in sales. And what that tells you is that all those other categories are doing really, really well also, without if you take the mask sales out of it. Despite the fact that something like wedding, we have a very big wedding business. People come to Etsy for everything from their engagement rings to their bridal gowns to the table numbers on the tables. That business is obviously going the other direction. So it shows you what a surge we're seeing in all the other categories. So we hope and we believe that when the world starts to come back to normal, those weddings will rebound, and we want those sellers to be there with their inventory at that time. And that's why we rushed in to really help them with a kind of a basket of initiatives to really give them some relief, particularly the important, the biggest sellers that were that were struggling the most. And that basket was something like $11 to $13 million of relief. And so we're seeing, some of them are having enjoying, a surge in sales, and some of them are struggling, but we're trying to kind of level the playing field and make sure that they're all okay through this period.
One of the listeners, Rachel, is asking a bit about that, and she's inquiring around account health, and what do you each see as the leading indicators of how an account or a customer is doing, and how do you help your customer success teams then talk about that with their customers? What can we do to make sure that everyone is doing okay, or that we can help where we can?
Do you want me to jump in first and then Elena?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, go for it.
So first of all, Zendesk really, it's been helpful during this period of time for us. So we have our member support team handles the 2.8 million sellers, but also the almost 50 million buyers. And that all comes through our member support team through email, chat, and phone, 24/7, multilingual, everywhere. And Zendesk really helps us be able to be very agile with increases in different customer needs during that time. What happened with that mask sale, not to wait too much on the mask sale example, is that you have sellers that were doing maybe a couple hundred orders a week, and all of a sudden they've got 20,000 orders. And so they were getting out way over the tips of their skis on what they could fulfill in a way that was going to meet a buyer's expectation, because the buyer's given their money and the seller maybe usually ships in 24 hours, but now they can't get all the supply out. And so our teams had to jump in very, very quickly to help sellers match the fulfillment to their capacity by throttling some of them back, reaching out directly to buyers to say, we know you want your item, but it's going to either take longer than you want, or we can refund you. And all the tools that Zendesk has provided that helped us really be able to very quickly do push messaging to them, or help them, the agents in the queue, to be able to know this is exactly how we're going to handle this customer segment, or this customer segment is best handled with email rather than phone, or things like that.
And that change in channels and that channel distribution as our volume is evolving, that is certainly a common theme that we're hearing across the board from customers, globally for that matter, is that, we may not be able to handle our phone volume, so we have to move everyone to chat, or we're moving them to email or into social messaging, so that it also provides a bit of relief to the employees themselves, since the phone volume just isn't going away if you leave it on. Lena, I'd love to hear your perspective on this too.
No, very much the same in terms of proactively engaging with our customers. I think you both nailed it on, or Sarah, you talked about the switch in channels. We're definitely seeing sort of a gravitation to more messaging channels, which is something that we've leaned in on at Zendesk for a while, and I think it's proving itself in a crisis that it's very relevant and valuable. But for us, what we look at as customers are using Zendesk, we're looking for, how actively are they using the product, and if they're not using it, let's find out what's going on. And the flip side is, if we're seeing a dramatic increase in ticket volume or usage, we just want to reach out and make sure, do they have everything they need? How can we help? Are there other channels that they're seeing are needed by their customers? So very, very similar, just proactive outreach.
And are either of you also, as we're seeing this change in our volume, and we're seeing the change in the channels, do we need to grow or change our CX teams? And a good portion, I'm going to back up for just a second, because a good portion of the people listening today are in operations, they're in contact center operations, they're in support. And I would expect that right now they're sitting there thinking, I could really use more people. My volume has changed dramatically, or, I don't perhaps have the right skills, but how do I talk to you now about investing more in my CX team when things just really feel a little uncertain? How does someone come to you, Elaine, and say, hey, I need more money, I need to grow my team?
Well, first they deliver a nice bottle of wine, and then we start the conversation. No, I mean, it's a fair question. And, I think the one thing is, the most important thing we can do is meet our customers in the channel in which they're in. And so making sure we're leveraging the tools we already have to make sure that that communication is as efficient. And also, a lot of customers, frankly, want to help themselves. So we have to make sure that there's communities out there where they can go and get what they need, so that we are not the bottleneck, and so that we can sort of really focus on the customers who have complex needs. And so for me, I would look to make sure that we're investing in tools to make the customer as self-sufficient as possible. I just know from my own experience, I almost never want to talk to anyone. I want to solve it. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I love people, but when I have the time to get to my problem, it's often not during even office hours, right? It's at the end of my 12-hour day. And so I want to be able to solve my own problem efficiently. So I would encourage people to really think about the average customer, especially some of the millennial type of customers we have, they're very much used to working on their own time in whatever channel they want, and they want to solve their own problem. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I would very much echo that, although I haven't tried the bottle of wine thing. I'm going to have to remember that idea. But very much, I had asked the people that lead our member support to give me some examples, but one of the ones that just popped out on the page to me was we relied on auto replies as a one-to-many support tactic to address high overall volume, which provide answers to common questions tailored to the customer selection in our contact flow, which is exactly what I think Elena's just saying. I, as a customer myself, if I can get the answer and not have to ever talk to a person and go through that kind of waiting and, you know, fitting it into like between eating a sandwich and running to the next meeting, I'm happy. Get it all done. So we rely a lot on the agility that the tools that Zendesk provides us. As a CFO, I sometimes find myself saying I want to spend more, because ultimately, even though cost per contact might go up in the short term, what you're actually doing is improving customer retention and their repeat purchase behaviors. So for instance, we've been in this period of time a lot more willing to just auto refund customers. I know that sounds funny, but it's really the seller who's supposed to do the refund, not Etsy. But if they have to go through some long case process to figure out how to get their money back because their item never showed up, that's a bad experience for them. So that's an example of where we're willing to spend more. Same thing with putting more agents on if we need to, so that you don't have long hold times, that you're getting to a person that has an answer. We want to do more of a follow the sun kind of staffing. So we now have put people in our Dublin office to handle some of the customer support volume. And we also have people offshore and on the West Coast. So we've got multi-language and pretty nice coverage. So we're 24/7, and the tools travel everywhere. All those that's the beauty of working with the software that you guys provide.
Well, let's keep this conversation around spending money going just a little bit longer. Are you reallocating any funds? Are you reallocating things right now in your organizations to perhaps aid your employees in their working from home or employee engagement or in something for your customers? How are you thinking that through right now?
Do you want me to jump?
Yep, let's go.
So yeah, we are actually using this moment. So we had 4 million new customers in the month of April, and then 2.5 million customers that we call them reactivated. So they hadn't been to Etsy in a year or more. And most of those came to us for free because there was this sudden top of mind awareness of Etsy that hadn't been there before. And we were showing up a lot in the natural search results on And so we took that opportunity to take that free traffic and free sales, meaning we didn't buy those people in, and using a lot of that moment of incremental growth to reinvest it in our business. So we're investing a lot in marketing. We've got the customers and we want to keep them. And we're investing a lot in our product, and we reprioritized our product roadmap where we might, when we were doing our regular planning process, we might have had the pressure of delivering a certain level of sales in period, where now we say, look, we have the opportunity to invest in some other things that are maybe going to have a longer term payback. And then, as I said earlier, we also are investing in our seller community because we have their back. So we took about $11 to $13 million and we gave it directly to them in a variety of ways.
That's awesome. Yeah, we're similar in that, we're obviously talking with customers actively and making sure we're helping them either with payment terms or things like that, especially those that are in a distressed situation. But in terms of our investment overall as a company, our orientation is always to focus on innovation and making sure we have the right amount of sales and marketing on the ground to support our growth. That hasn't changed, other than maybe the orientation of our product roadmap is focused more on things that will drive time to value for our customers sooner. So that's definitely an important element. And then we have invested with our employees just to give them the tools to work from home since that happened almost overnight, and we weren't really prepared for that.
we're getting a lot of questions, which is fantastic. And what I'd like to do is play a little bit of a lightning round around your crystal balls. And so people seem to think that you have a little bit more insight into what's happening in the world than like I do. So we'd love to hear your opinion on a few things. All right, so Rachel, what do you think is the future of physical retail?
I love to shop, so I'm hoping, I'm hoping that it takes it has a return to normalcy at some point. Etsy is definitely benefiting from many fewer choices right now of places to shop. So with my Etsy hat on, I think we and many e-commerce companies are benefiting from offline to online at a much faster velocity than we had ever seen before. But I do think that in a permanent state, there'll be some mix of offline to online, and that just might take some time till we get back there.
I agree. And I do hope retail still keeps, I'm with you. Online retail therapy only gets me so far. Elena, do you think the remote workforce concept is less of a trend and is going to carry on post COVID-19?
I do. I think that companies, it's a hot topic actually. A lot of companies are talking about reimagining how we work. Because we've proven what we thought was impossible to be possible. And so now that's opened up everyone's imagination about, well, how long could we actually work from home? And not that we would work from home permanently, but will it be more of a commonplace thing than it was in the past? And I do think that that's true. I think how companies implement that and how companies reoccupy their building, their workforces and so on will be important and will need to be orchestrated carefully. But I don't think we'll go back to what we all knew as the normal office environment.
And Rachel, to tie into that, do you think customer experience or customer service organizations can be solely remote, or are they better served collective in an office?
I think it'll be a mix. It's similar to what Elena said, that the mix might shift a bit. As I got a big thing right in front of me.
Just ignore it. Swoop it away. We like to confuse people periodically. It's part of the charm.
The mix might shift to more remote than we are today, but we have a big member support organization in upstate New York in Hudson, and that is the most chill, warm, loving environment that they love to be together, and they love each other, and there's a nice community there. And I think many of them miss being there. We also have remote customer support, and like I said, in other parts of the world, and so those would remain remote, but many of them are working from home now, and it works. We need to make sure they have the proper equipment for it. I'll say that Etsy as a company, not just member support, has always had at least 10% of its workforce working remote. And when you count our satellite offices in San Francisco and Dublin and London, it's more like 35% of us are non-Brooklyn, because the headquarters is Brooklyn. And that works too. I think time zone is the thing that is the great glue that we need to have some critical mass of hours where we're all working together. And the 2.8 million sellers, if they're not our employees, they're not our workforce, but they are the company, and they've always been remote, primarily working from their own homes. So it's like almost like the largest sort of population of supply that exists in the world that's was ready to go, already working remote. We're kind of ready, we're geared up and ready to
cool way to think about it, actually. Yeah.
We talked to Upwork a few weeks ago, and they said the same thing. All of their freelancers were already working from home, and so for them, they were very well equipped to make this transition, much better than many other orgs. Elena, you mentioned earlier about this transition now from phone to some of our other channels that we have been talking about for so long, and about the move into messaging. is this now the right time to close down phone or remove our great dependency and use it as a catalyst to really, kick off some of these other channels?
I'll tell you, my kids don't even know what a phone is, a real rotary phone. But no, I think it'll naturally happen. And I think COVID is sort of a forcing function where, especially the next generation of consumer, that they will, lean in on messaging. And so it may take a while to get rid of phone altogether because there's people like me still in the world. But I do think that pivot is starting, and it was accelerated dramatically, I would say, over the last couple of months. And I think that won't go away. Like, I don't think we will all of a sudden stop messaging next year once we're all back at work. So
we have time for one more question. I told you this was going to go so fast. This is also a question from one of our audience members, and I'd love to hear from both of you. What is the best way right now to appease customers who may be a little frustrated with things like shipping delays or things not being in stock or operational issues, things that are happening due to COVID-19? Do you have a response that you give to your teams or that you've pushed out to your support organizations? Rachel?
Well, so our customers are both our sellers and our buyers, and I think both groups actually, what they want is responsiveness and information. With a buyer, if they're never going to get their product, it's because it was fraud, or it's the seller's just so far delayed in being able to ship. The best response is probably, we've got it, we're going to refund you, or we're going to give you a credit to go buy the item at some other shop. For the seller, it's really letting them be heard and understand that we get so much great information from sellers about our products. And so listening to them and being responsive to it is, like, I think, number one.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't change that answer at all. I think, one, be as responsive as you can, even if it's just an acknowledgement. I got your email, we'll be back with you in 24 hours. But then once you do get them on the phone, show empathy and listen more than respond before you actually come to them with the solution.
I think that is a fantastic place to end. I want to thank you both so much. This was so much fun.
It's fun,
and we could have kept talking, and the questions are still rolling in. And so I do apologize that we couldn't answer them all, but we really appreciate everyone's time. So a big thanks to both Rachel and Elena. And for everyone listening, please connect with Zendesk and the rest of our community through social and everywhere else that you can find us on screen. And next week, we do love just hearing from you all. And next week, we're going to take a break, but we will be back on May 28th, and we'll be chatting with Harry's around how COVID-19 has impacted them and all the hairy humans throughout the world right now who are unable to get haircuts or go to a barber. But in the meantime, stay safe, be helpful, and we'll chat again in a couple weeks. Bye, everyone.
Yes.